Does Galatians 3 verse 1 mean that the Galatian Christians witnessed the crucifixion of Jesus Christ? Well, Galatians 3 verse 1 says in part, "It was before your eyes that Jesus Christ was publicly portrayed as crucified." The Greek word prographo can mean written about. Therefore, the Galatians learned about Jesus' death through Paul's use of the scriptures. What scriptures did Paul use? Well, Galatians was written around the year 48 CE, which is about 20 years before the first of the Gospels, which is Mark, was written. So even if the verbal accounts that would end up in the Gospels about Jesus were circulating in Galatia, which is modern-day Turkey, Paul's teaching did not come from the Gospel accounts. How do I know that? Well, if we go to Galatians 1, 11 and 12, Paul says in his letter, "For I would have you know, brothers, that the gospel that was preached by me is not man's gospel." Verse 12, "For I did not receive it from any man, nor was I taught it, but I received it through a revelation of Jesus Christ." So Paul's teaching was totally independent of the Gospels and came by direct revelation from Jesus Christ, supposedly. So if the four Gospel accounts had started circulating among Christians, are these what Paul fiercely addressed in Galatians 1, 8 and 9? Let's have a look at that. Paul says, "But even if we, or an angel from heaven, should preach to you a gospel contrary to the one we preach to you, let him be accursed. As we have said before, so now I say again, if anyone is preaching to you a gospel contrary to the one you received, let him be accursed." So this is interesting when we see that the gospel accounts weren't written yet, but they may have been circulating before they were put into writing. All of a sudden we see these verses here from Paul in a different light. So it could have been addressing these other gospels and possibly gospels that haven't been included in the Bible, who knows. But Paul goes to great pains to say that his apostleship was not from men but through Jesus, that his gospel was by direct revelation from Jesus. He wasn't taught it by any man. And he stresses this all throughout the book of his letter, rather, to the Galatians. So what can we learn from Paul's letter to the Galatians? There's 4 points. The first one, the Galatians did not witness Jesus' death. It was portrayed to them by the Apostle Paul. The second point, Paul taught the Galatians about Jesus' death using the Hebrew scriptures. The third point, the earliest gospel, which was Mark, which is written roughly 70 CE, wouldn't be written for another 20 years after this letter. And the fourth point, Paul was not taught his gospel by any man, but supposedly received it by direct revelation from Jesus Christ. So this is some interesting points that I got through study of Galatians. Galatians was possibly the first of 7 letters which are recognised by scholars as being most likely written by Paul. The other 6 are attributed to other writers. So that's another interesting point which you can look up for yourself to make up your own mind on that. So If you found any information in here surprising or useful, if you have any other insights that you've gleaned from your research, please share them in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, like, share and subscribe. This is one for Azazel.